All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 13 of the Temple Podcast. Finally, with me today, I have not exactly a player, but something's been in the works for a while, and that would be Mitch Conky and then Conky. Is that correct?
That's the one, mate. Well done.
There you go. Brilliant. Dude, I'm on a roll now. Anyway, so how you doing, mate? You good?
Yeah, no, really good. I was off work crook today with my back, but aside from that, I'm alive, so that's all that matters. I'm here.
Being alive is good, I've heard.
It is.
So, so it's been a while, but we're finally here now, getting into it on episode 13. So that's good. Anyway, we'll get straight into it because I came into this scene probably 2-3 years ago, I think, and at the time, that was when Ground Zero first started doing their LAN tournaments.
Yes, yep.
Right, and I think you were on a team. Oh Jesus, Youngbloods, was it?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, the only ever LAN winning experience I will ever have.
Yeah, the great LAN win. Yeah,
carried by Sack. Shout out to him. What a guy.
Legendary experiences. That was those were the days of doing a TriCast on the bare minimum. Yeah, that was great. So that was when I first sort of was introduced to you, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I heard that, I should say, after, I guess, being in the scene for a bit, you were in the COD scene a little bit with Envious, is that correct?
Yeah, I was. So about, it's scratching back now, like maybe 7 or 8 years ago or something. I started playing just with some friends, and it was more like a sniping thing, as you know, like all the shit you'd see on YouTube, like the trick shotting and the clips and the highlights, and that was pretty much it. And a few of us that were quite close, Nick, used to play a lot. And then, at my absolute peak, I managed to join Envy. But then, unfortunately, due to some issues, their actual sniping team disbanded. But it came at a good time because the scene got really, really toxic. And it was kind of, I'd been playing for 5 years or something. And I was like, okay, maybe it's time to stop now. But it was really cool. It was, there was only maybe 3 or 4 of us in AUNZ that were in Envy. And only maybe 10 of us that were quite popular. So it was very weird, a very strange feeling. And I guess I didn't know how to handle that at the very, very start.
Yeah.
And that's hence why the toxicity thing kind of unraveled a little bit. And in the end, I was just like, nah. So I sort of kept my Twitter, but I left it on private and only had some close friends follow me. And then I guess it was CS later on. So
now, with the switch to CS, were you playing CS alongside COD, or was there a distinct shift from when the community obviously came a little bit toxic, and then did you switch over, or was it like you were always playing both games, but then that kind of shifted?
No, it was a bit of a transition period. I was actually playing a lot of League of Legends. I think when I started going to uni, I got a laptop, which I'd never had a computer that could run any games before. That's why I was always console boy. And then I finally got the laptop, and I think I was running Windows on a MacBook to play League of Legends on my bed with a Razer mouse on a Guinness World Book of Records as my mouse pad. And that was my PC gaming experience at the start. But then we moved house and I had room for a desk, and I finally built a PC. And then one of my friends introduced me to CSGO, which was, I think it was Entice NV, or he was around for a long, long time, but he played a lot of CS, 1.6, and brought us on, a few of us. And I think me and Haz and people like that started around that time, but that would have been maybe 3.5 years ago. So it was COD, League, and then CS later.
And you mentioned Haz there. Did you meet him in COD, or was that Counter-Strike?
Yeah, we were on Team Envy together some time ago.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned obviously you played League then. That was, what year was it that you started playing League?
Oh, Jesus. I don't know the exact year, but it would have been Season 2, Season 3. So what are we in, Season 9 now or something? So maybe 2012 to 2013, I think it would have been. Started playing back then. So it was a while ago, yeah.
Fair enough. So early on League, and then it went to Counter-Strike. And how quickly into Counter-Strike did you sort of realize that you wanted to get into the casting side of things? Had you done that for COD or anything like that before, or no?
No, never. So I never had good enough internet. So I think the distinct changer was about 2.5 years ago when I moved into this house. So I moved out of home in April 2017. So a little under 2.5 years ago, and I finally had good internet. And I'd been meaning to stream for ages because I used to play like League and Guitar Hero on stream occasionally, but it was so bad, the quality. It was, like 240p or whatever it was. So I always wanted to get into streaming. And then as soon as my internet came good, I had a few friends, and if anyone remembers, there was a team called Fivefold, which then ultimately became Tainted Black, which was like Haz and Scoot and all those guys. They started playing CGM, and I still remember the first ever game. So shout out to Bernsky and Husky, for they were in the first ever game that I casted long I think they were on Tyrant, so a long time ago. But it was Tyrant versus Fivefold in CGM, and one of my mates was just like, hey, like you've got good internet now, right? Like can you stream the game? I said, oh yeah, sure. Like and I'll try to throw some words over it. And in the end, it was like I got some feedback afterwards because my mate was like, hey, that was really good, but you were like super fucking biased. And I was like, yeah, of course, because my mates that are playing, and I think I distinctly remember thinking Husky was a cheater as well. And then after that, they sort of gave me some feedback, and they were like, but no, man, you should really keep doing it. So that was my friend Muffa. And ever since then, I really sort of had a taste for it and really, really enjoyed the casting. And I think it took a little while of like deciding that I'm shit at CS and like, okay, I want to do casting instead. So it was a bit of a journey through there, but I think it was those handful of friends that said you were really good and should keep on going. So
so obviously that would be your first casting experience was in that CGM genre. So how long before you went directly into MDL?
I think it was alongside, if you guys remember, Riotous. Riotous had both an academy team and a main team that got into MDL. And MDL, it was the start. I think it was, Incept, I think it was, that they bought the roster. And it was like the Riotous Raccoons. So, like Calf and Sterling and stuff. Sure. And that was the first ever game I casted on MDL. And my friend, Kieran KZA, who he had a connection with Flames, the guy that runs HLTV. So he got my stream up on HLTV the first time, and I just remember seeing the viewer count, like, oh my god, like what is this? And ever since then, I was like, shit, I need to cast like more of this stuff. It was really, really cool, and just having the chat interaction, like the actual number figure has never been that. It's exciting the first few times because like holy fuck, but then you realize it's like mainly view bots or Russian gamblers or whatever it is. But just seeing that chat interaction and seeing like, oh my god, so many people are watching what I'm doing, and that's really cool. And then it came along, it was an MDL game, and someone goes like, you work in an office, right? I was like, yeah. He's like, you should put on a suit. What do you mean? I was like, just put on a suit. Okay, all right. So I did, and chucked the webcam on and sat like, with it down the bottom. And it was very like controversial in the early days. Like me and Manic were doing it. And it was a weird time, but I guess some people didn't, and some people did like it. But I guess that's where I got my first like leap into MDL. But that would have been within probably 3 to 6 months of doing that CGM game originally. So I mainly followed the CGM season with my friends, playing the games, and then ultimately when Riotous became a thing and a little bit more interest in that regard, and those guys sort of pumped me into it. So me and Druce used to do a few casts here and there. That was really fun. But it went sort of really, really quickly into that MDL phase,
when did you... So I saw in the early days, you did a few co-casts with Brainstorm.
So
what was the connection there? How did you guys meet up?
Look, I can't even remember how I met up with Brainstorm, to be quite honest. Like, I think he was one of the original people, because he used to cast a lot of MDL as well, and also Nutters, another guy, and I think him and Nutters and Brainstorm used to cast together a lot. So we sort of, just stumbled into that sector together. And I think a lot of us, when the MDL casting Discord became a thing, we all just sort of fell into that and just started discussing and whatnot. It's really cool now, because I feel like every single person that I've wanted to cast with, except Elfish, I haven't, and also Karath, I haven't had a chance to cast with either of them. I think even Pilly I might match up with nicely, but the people I came up with, it was really cool to be able to transition from casting with them online to casting with them at a LAN. So that was really sick. But yeah, Brainstorm, he's just really nice guy. Really nice guy, and believed in what I was doing, I think, and liked to give feedback and whatnot. So just went from there. And I think that was at a time where he lived with Sniper and stuff as well. So just sort of all, and Jim and Esso, of course.
Yeah.
He was one of the people that really helped me at the very, very start. And that, I guess, with them living together, it sort of unraveled that way.
Was WPGI the first LAN event that you did?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So I got to do, I don't think I had Bal, I think it was just Jim, but I got to do the grand final and one of the group stage games or whatever it was, or the semis or something, which was a really, really cool experience. It was a shame that the event didn't go the way people wanted to. I think that just maybe it wasn't advertised correctly. But the event was for what was actually there. It was really cool, as you would remember from being there. And then, yeah, that was my first, I guess, big break and first thing from LAN on HLTV, getting viewers and everything. So it's pretty cool.
When you were describing who you think you would match up well with when it comes to like casting and the duo side of things, and I often feel like people that aren't really involved in the casting side of things don't seem to understand the way that the dynamic works between color and play-by-play, and how some people almost have their own custom style of a combination of both. So how would you describe your style of like commentating?
Well, my commentating's mostly play-by-play. That's where I get my most excitement, I guess. But I am a bit volatile in the sense that I do play the game a lot still. I do know a lot of the, I spend a lot of time talking to a lot of the players, being close to them in both a personal sense and also a business sense, I guess, as well. Trying to understand, the way their team works, the way the team's structured. Always keeping an eye on watching as much Australian CS as I can. So I guess my involvement in the scene and being so active, I've got a very good understanding and can pull a color sense. But I guess my preference would be to have a really strong color caster and then let me run with the play-by-play. So that's why I think someone like Pilly would be really good. But I do find probably my most enjoyment with like your Max and your Manic. Manic's a little bit different because he hasn't been playing the game as much lately, so he's definitely more play-by-play. And when we did the IEM Sydney qualifiers, I sort of fell into the colour role a bit more. But after we did it for a little bit, it sort of flowed and it wasn't sort of strictly structured, as in who was doing what. He was sort of taking the lead, but also, say, for example, if it came into a high tension point, he'd just let me run with it, and vice versa. I'd throw over to him at different times. So whereas for me and Mac, we've been doing that the whole time. Both of us come from very heavy solo play-by-play casting. So when we mesh together, the good thing about me and Mac is, he plays a lot of FPLC. He's very active in the community as well. I'm the same. So for us doing the casting, it was just like a switch flicked. It wasn't like any awkward tension where you might talk over someone. It was just like, that person's go for it, or like, okay, I've been talking for a little bit, I'll swing it over to you now. So, every second round, one of us would be doing the hype part and then the other would do the analyst part. So that's really fun. I really enjoy casting like that. But also, I do feel comfort in a set play-by-play color. So yeah.
So the few times that I've done duo casting, I feel like it is quite difficult to get into a good rhythm with whoever you're doing it with on that first go. Like, you'll get a lot of that talking over each other and things. So for you, what is the time period where you go, okay, now we can get into a rhythm? Is there a set number, or is it depending? Obviously you mentioned Mac, you flicked into it, but on a usual basis, how long does it take you before you can sort of, I guess, tune yourself to the rhythm of the other person?
Yeah, it really depends. I feel like the first map is so much a trial. So say, for example, doing a LAN, so I can go back to LPL LAN, the first one of the year in New Zealand. I did that with Nutters, and he was sort of more so doing the color, I guess, in a sense, or it was kind of a bit half-half. But anyway, I didn't know how to sort of react to his quirks initially. But then after the first map, after he was throwing out a few phrases or terms or whatever, and also the main thing is the fact that we're in person, so we'd have like little hand cues or something like that, or like make it very obvious, like here, or taking it back, or put your finger up to say like 1 second, I'm about to say something. So that really works. Online, it can be really, really tricky, especially if you don't know that person that well. And also, just because even there's like a slight delay, like as we're talking now, I'm sure there's only like a half second or second delay, but that might be enough to sort of throw the other person a little bit. And that used to happen to me and Chris a little bit. But the good thing that me and Chris had going when we were doing those MDL games at the start was that he was very strictly color. So he knew every single point in time to like hand it over to me, and I would always do the same for him. So, but yeah, main things and is like hand signal. And obviously, usually it's after that one game you sort of iron out some things. So IM Sydney qualifiers, we did the first map, me and Manic, and he was like, all right, that went really well, but we need to like fix like this. And then I felt like the rest of the series just went so smooth.
You have an interesting style when it comes to, obviously, I think you'd probably be most well known for your hype and the way you surround the game in that sort of high level of hype. But you also have this sort of, I guess, like you said, it's because you're so entrenched in the scene, you talk to so many of them that, you have this almost weird memory of lineups and where people come from and all that kind of thing. So do you find that, actually, have you ever done like an analyst desk or anything like that?
I haven't, and I would absolutely love to. I think I could kind of run that sort of similar thing to like what a sponge does, I guess, because I've got the charisma to do so. However, I feel like there are much better suited people for that role. Yeah. That's the only thing that I would say. But it was really, really nice. So the first ever LAN that I did for ESL, not LAN, it was AUNZ Champs, but the first ever studio I did. There was a few people that still, I guess they maybe hadn't paid attention to some of my casting or stuff like that, but I won't name the person. However, after I did the cast, I had a very, very high profile person message me in our scene and say like, holy shit, I had no idea that you had the capacity to be so professional. And it kind of made me laugh at the start because, like my day-to-day job is very, very professional.
Yeah.
And also when I need to be, of course I'm going to be, if someone's either paying me or supported me through to the event, you're going to do it to exactly the T that they want you to do. You're not going to come in and start throwing swears around or, dressing up, looking like shit or whatever. Of course, you're going to do it quite strict. So that was kind of a really special moment to me. It was where people realized like, oh, damn, like this guy actually sort of knows what he's talking about. So that was cool. But I don't know. I feel it's just, I love the game. I love it so much. Like the game is so, anything can happen in a split second that will change the course of a round or even the entire, which can lead to the entire game. And you think about, like, if you think about every single member in the top 8 right now, every single player, the management staff behind them, could you name one dickhead? Really? Like, I'm trying to honestly think, like, the top 5 is clean immediately. Like, think to those guys, they're all really, really good blokes. And then extending that out even to the end of the top 10. Like, you go into the, midst of the 15 to 30 and it starts to get very, very, very disgusting to a sense. But the people who are up front and like in the starlight all the time, they're such good people, which I like getting to know them and their backstory and where they come from. I get like, I can take that into the casting with me. So it's just like, say for example, if someone pulls off something that may be very, one of their traits, like, they'll pull off something that's really cool, that's specific to their play style, you'll be able to like isolate that item and point it out and try and bring the public in to, because at the end of the day, like if you're not trying to bring the viewer to like your level or something like that, it's just words, at the end of the day. So I think, my passion comes from understanding everything that goes on in the scene and just really having a strong appreciation for the people behind it and in the limelight and also in the background as well.
Yeah, I think that that's a pretty accurate sum of your style, I guess, is that it is almost like, just a member of the community who's just super excited about every game. And he just, you can just tell that there's so much like that these players and you're excited for them. And I think that comes across quite well. When you were doing the MDL, obviously, I I think there's quite a few Reddit clips of your casting, and some of those clips. Obviously, you swore in some of those clips, right?
Yes.
Did you ever find it difficult? Because obviously now you've done the IEM Sydney qualifiers and things like that. Did you ever find it difficult, or any sort of pushback there when it came to translating that sort of very, I guess, casual style that is MDL, and then turning that into a more professional ESL broadcast, like, your professional broadcast style?
Yeah, correct. Me personally, no. Like, so say as in of what the persona I needed to put on, depending on who I was working for, absolutely. But basically, the way I got towards actually doing ESL work, so I was very, very lucky that both Asterix and Cyanide from Cybergamer immediately sort of recognized my, I guess my ability, and also Judge Brand. So those are a few names that really supported me in the early days. And obviously anyone who sort of I felt was supporting me, especially other casters, I always wanted to get them involved as well. And I felt like that was a fantastic opportunity to show in person, but also doing paid online events as well was a good opportunity. Where it's just no swearing, obviously throwing a little bit of banter here and there, but it's this person is paying you, you're going to do what they need you to do, basically. So it's say, for example, if I'm casting the girls on Wednesday, I'm not going to be swearing like I would, over random shit that's happening in MDL. So it's a little bit different on that sense. So there was a really big gap, and I guess again, I can go into some detail without going too far, but it definitely was a really, really large gap. So I think over a year ago at last IEM Sydney, there was an incident where I hit front page Reddit for something a little bit off color, I guess. And that was obviously around a very, very large event that was the ESL Run. Now, I think that stuck and left a bad taste in some of the ESL members' mouths. So that made it very, very difficult to, proceed on to the next step. So I was doing work for everyone else, but there was always that last, the final boss. ESL, it's I want to work with these guys because now that I know, especially, they're super amazing to work with. Their production's awesome. Just all good people behind the scenes as well. But basically, I had a 1 week transition where I had the week off prior to finishing my last job and moving to the next one. And it was at a very sort of interesting time in my life. I was like, fuck, do I move to Sydney? Do I stay here? I don't know what I want to do with my life. I want to be casting. I want to take it as far as I can go. But also at the same time, I don't know if I can pack up my life and head over east. But I was very, very close. And anyway, I had a conversation with members of ESL staff and basically put my finger out and I said, I want to do IEM Sydney group stages. And they basically said, hey, thanks for the email, pointed out points in my information that I put in because I made a full resume that I sent over to these guys. They said, hey, look, we can't let that happen. We can't give you that opportunity now, but we want to talk. Give us a call and we'll sort it out. So basically I had the call with two people and we took it to that next step. And basically that resulted in where I've brought myself. So I've flown myself both times over to Sydney to get those opportunities. So, it was proving to them I'm willing to do whatever I need to do to show you that I'm good at what I do.
Yeah.
And I'm just super stoked that both events went really, really well. And I got fantastic feedback from those people. And I think it was meeting up with the people for the first time that had that bad taste in their mouth and shaking their hand and showing who I was. Because, as obviously, I'm a very out there person on Twitter. I don't really hold back on too much. I'm very careful with what I say now that doesn't make me come across in, a sexist or racist or anything tone like that. But I'm still very outspoken. I show a lot of my life, I guess. And I think a lot of people don't know how to take that in, I guess. So when actually I get to meet that person in real life, it's a whole different world. I don't know. I think people have a very different perception of me on the internet than just plain old Conky that, is an insurance broker by day.
Yeah, well, I think that is obviously quite true for most people, especially in the talent sort of industry, in the fact that very often people only see the social media or the on-screen side, and they don't really understand that there is a person there behind that, and that person is oftentimes, you know, the thing that gets you into things like ESL, right? Is being able to network. And I'm sure that the you know, your job as an insurance is insurance broker the correct term for that?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
I'm sure that would have helped you quite a lot when it comes to, I guess, leaving a good impression on people and being able to negotiate and things like that. So was there much that you took away from your, obviously, your mainstream job and then bring that into the esports side of things?
Hugely. So to summarize, I guess, like, a lot of people don't know what an insurance broker basically does.
Yeah.
And a broker is like the middleman. So, you know, there's a person with a business, there's insurers. So, like, you know, your typical names you'd see is like QBE, CGU, blah, 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 whatever. That person who runs a business needs insurance, and usually they don't know what they need and where to get it or whatever at the best price. So we're in the middle. So I guess like a mortgage broker is a similar sort of style job. But both of them, I guess, both casting and insurance is like, I talk shit for a living, basically. I guess you could put it that way. But professional shit, I guess you could say. So a lot of my dealings in business are with people who are well and truly over my age. Like, you know, I guess most of my client base would be anywhere from 35 to 60, I guess, sometimes even older, sometimes a little younger. But, you know, when you're, as a broker, you handle a lot of revenue. So say, you know, my business is reliant on me to maintain those relationships between the clients that bring us money. So it's all about that networking sort of thing, I guess. So I was able to utilize those skills that I learned in insurance and in my previous and current roles, and then sort of took that into the esports scene, I guess. So I'm still careful. Like, I try and be very broad and try to get on the same level as every person in the community and try understand where they come from and be on the same wave as them. There's some that I definitely don't agree with their, you know, but that's life, you know, like, you're always going to come across people you don't agree with. But I'll always try my best to, you know, get on everyone's good side without a sense of trying to use that as like, oh, I'm going to be nice to this person so I can climb the ladder. It's like not anything to do with that. It's just, I find it easier to be good to those people because in turn they'll hopefully be good back to me. Yeah. So that's the way I've always gone with it. But yes, to answer your question, insurance helped with that a lot.
Was there any like, well, actually, I could imagine there's probably one or two people out there that would probably benefit from some of your knowledge of those networking skills. So is there any like specific things that you learned from being an insurance broker that you were like, man, that really helps when it comes to like just, I know it might sound crazy, right? But just making a good impression on people is so much more important than what most people would think.
Yeah. Like, real talk, like meeting face to face is always like the first thing. But then obviously when you get there, you've got to do something to get across that line. I guess it's something simple as dressing nice, you know, looking presentable is always one thing. But then just kind of like making that person feel on the same level as you. It's like, no matter who you are, no matter what you come from, at the end of the day, like, I never go into a conversation with anyone in whatever they are thinking I'm better than you or I'm worse than you. You know, we're on the same table. And I usually try and poke people with questions first to sort of understand, you know, where their morals are and that kind of thing. So, you know, obviously, say if I pick up, in my previous role, I was dealing with builders and pretty much only builders. So WA, blokey, you know, VB in the afternoon, builders. So when I call up, you know, Jimbo's building service, yeah, g'day mate, how's it going? But if I get to speak to, say, one of the accounting ladies or something, you know, it'll always be very formal and so just different depending on the person. You know, it doesn't have to be, it's never usually a gender thing, or it's usually just like feeling how they come into the conversation first and then slightly modifying, I guess. So it's like, I don't lie, I'll never lie to someone, but it's like understanding what people are gonna, you know, benefit out of the conversation and going down that avenue.
So you come from obviously that very professional mainstream job of being an insurance broker, and I noticed over the last year of doing the casting side of things and looking at the scene in general, I think there's maybe, I guess, an active discussion on how professional you want the Counter-Strike scene to be, and especially that Australian Counter-Strike underneath that as well, because even just a small thing like dress code, right, where you'll see, you go watch the major and people are wearing, just a nice shirt, right, a nice shirt and some trousers, whatever, and that's the outfit. And then there's other people that will go to events and you're wearing a full suit and tie. So I know I've definitely come across this myself, where it's like, so what exactly is the dress code here? Where do you think the level of professionality, I guess, should be in just the Australian Counter-Strike scene?
The Australian Counter-Strike scene is such an interesting one because, obviously there's a lot of aspects of Australia that people, and I understand that, we are quite often seen as, binge drinking, sexist, racist, whatever you want to call us. A lot of us don't have the best rap around the world, right? But at the end of the day, us, Aussie, just regular Aussie people, I feel like do give a good vibe to the rest of the world. It's like we've got a lot to offer personality wise. And that's why, you've got your people, the people I always see, put them at the front is your Tucks, your Dick Stacey's, those kind of guys that are always in the advertising light, right? They're just themselves, they don't put on any show, and people love that. People adore that. That the clip I always go back to is the thick, hard, and pumped Dick Stacey clip, right? That traveled far and wide. That was one of the best clips to ever come out of it, and it was in a stage where Australian CS. It's the obviously Australian teams have been around for a little while, but it was at that point where Australian teams was like, oh shit, they're actually doing pretty good around the rest of the world. So it was there was a likable component to that. So I think we need to embrace Australian CS, because if we cull all the personality out of it, right? I'll go back one step and take it to the land this weekend. So we had Danny Kim putting chilies down people's mouths, and we had Karath rock up to pretend to be Danny Kim after swapping over. That banter, it's still professional. You're not swearing at each other and you're not abusing each other. It's just very good ribbing, I guess, good-natured ribbing. So stuff like that, I think we need to nurture and keep it for as long as possible, because the very strict suit and tie casting, I've done it and it's great. But also I feel that's what I love seeing now, on the desk, the majors, for example, the leather jacket or whatever with the shirt underneath it, or maybe just a nice button up. It doesn't have to be full suit and tie, and that still kills it. I feel like they look professional enough. The stuff they're talking about on the stream is relevant. It's more so the unprofessional side I see of it when, and again, you really teeter down into the depths of hell in CGA and CGM, where everyone's telling each other to kill themselves and blah, 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 whatever you get.
The depths of hell.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's one thing that I really see why our scene sort of falls behind a little bit as well, because teams fall apart so fast, but that's another story. I think I agree with the sentiment that keeping a very clean look and professional is really good. But also at the same time, you can look the part, but don't lose what we are. Because if we're just another NA or EU, so you watch NA casters, for example, they don't really have much life to them. They sort of just they know their shit and they're really, really good. But it's not very exciting. It's just kind of very monotone and whatever. EU casters, a lot of them have a little bit more life, but again, it's not it seems a bit more straight edge. Whereas your Aussies, here bloody Mac and Manicot, for example, on the weekend, just giving each other shit. It's awesome, because when it's there's only so much you can analyze a full USP eco, right? If you're, oh my God, oh shit, they've got one flashbang and they're taking it here. Who fucking cares? Talk about anything else. And it doesn't even have to be external to the game. You can still talk about a previous round, or something one of the players might have eaten for breakfast this weekend. Who gives a shit? Anything that keeps that banter going and making the chat laugh. Because at the end of the day, if you're just monotone and boring and stuff like that, you may as well just watch the GoTV feed without any, the GoTV with no casting over the top.
Yeah, I've always sort of thought of it as a smart casual kind of
pretty much.
Yeah, as in you want it to be clean, but also, like you said, embrace the idea that there is a lot of banter and a lot of very big personalities in our scene. You shouldn't shy away from that, and try to, lock it behind a suit and a tie and have everybody there going, yes, well, I agree with you, sir.
Yeah, pretty much.
We don't need any of that. It's just, let's keep it as it is, because I think it works very well right now. I think that, the trash talk and the banter side of things is always something that entertains people no matter what the sport is. You only have to look at YouTube compilations of like NBA games and all the trash talk in that, and it's like everybody loves that. So there's no reason to shy away from it, especially considering, I guess, Counter-Strike's generally considered the cool esport. You know what I mean? Like, it's
pretty much, yeah. It's funny, like I always
it's not
say,
League of Legends.
Correct. Like, you see some of the other esports, and like I have such respect for like every single competitive gaming, game really. But it's like, yeah, you look at all you would take, like, say, for example, take 50 pro CS players and like line them up against 50 pro Dota or League players. The difference is just unbelievable, hey?
Yeah, it's there's a stark difference between the two.
Everyone's like you look at like all the pro like players in NA for now, they're all bloody jacked and they've all got like sleeve tattoos and everything. It's like, damn.
What happened? It's just crazy. That's always the best part. Whenever you see somebody who goes, "Oh, yeah, they're all just fat, aren't they?" No, you just go have a look at the Counter-Strike scene, mate. You got Freakazoid out there just flexing like a madman.
I always show like people who've never seen like Counter-Strike competitive gaming or whatever. It's like I show the photo of Pasha biceps tensing on stage, and everyone's like, "That guy doesn't play CS." Like, yeah, he was pretty good at it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the old days of that Cloud9 lineup, and they were all wearing the tank tops.
Yeah,
it was like, oh, brilliant! This is exactly what I want from CS. Is a team and a North American team.
That's what it is, though, isn't it? Like, and that's why I kind of wish the casters would sort of like play to, because you think about NAFPL. Like, I'm sure if you've seen any of like Tarek or Jason R's or any of those videos of the banter and like, your Shazams and your PTRs and like all those guys, all they do is just talk shit the whole pug. And it's like, you've got to, like, I don't know why they don't embrace that more. Like, because it's like, exactly how they're going to be talking in the game chat right now, and like Steel jumping up and yelling profanities at the other team. And I kind of wish they like dig in. Obviously, I guess it gets to a point where it's too much. I definitely think, and I've seen it at LANs as well. It's like where the banter takes that one step too far, and it's like, dude, be careful because you're probably going to get knocked out. Like, actually, take one back for a minute. But
KOs.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's so good to have that banter, because at the end of it, afterwards, you go up to them, you shake the hand, you give them a hug or whatever, and it's like, hey, all good, man, all good.
Yeah.
And I feel like if that's embraced right, we're not going to come across to the rest of the world as shit. Basically, it's like, it's just all good fun, pretty much.
Are there any other esport games that you've thought about casting, or is it only Counter-Strike for you?
Counter-Strike has always been the one that, like, rings the most true with me, just because of how explosive it is. Again, as I said, one simple flashbang or one simple force buy or something can change the whole course of the game, and that makes it really exciting, because a lot of, say, for example, games like League, it's like little 2-minute chunks of really high intensity gameplay over like, so maybe there might be like 3 or 4 of them in the big team fights over a 40-minute or 30-minute game. So there's so much more color and so much more analysis, as opposed to, pretty much every single round in CS, you got to have a high intensity point, unless it's an eco. But even then you have crazy shit. That's probably where most of the crazy shit happens, to be honest. But a few people were tagging me in a post like about a COD LAN. Like, I guess I would have to go back and relearn the game. Rocket League interests me as well, but the main thing is you can always tell, for example, right, and this is no dig to anyone, because especially when you've not had the time to keep up, it's always good to do. But say, for example, if someone's casting CS and they've just sat on HLTV for 20 minutes before the game, you can tell. Like, you can absolutely tell that person. And again, there's no disrespect to that. I understand it, and that kind of thing. Like, I'm on HLTV all the time, and it's but my knowledge intake, I always try to be a bit more natural as opposed to forced reading kind of thing. But I don't want to say go and cast like League or a game or Rocket League or whatever, because I don't play it enough. Like, I understand the core fundamentals of the game. But I feel like you could come across and very easily tell that I don't play the game, which I feel a lot of like, you know, elitist fans. So say like Dota's always been a very elitist game. If I came along and started casting Dota, I'd be able to bring the hype and I'd be able to talk up the players, but I'd get so much wrong. And you could just like, I reckon all the people would be like, fuck, this guy has no idea what he's talking about, like really quickly. So, yeah, I'd definitely like to expand to more games, but I think I'd have to put in the hours in the game first.
Yeah. It's weird that like you said, it does almost seem like that play-by-play role can't transfer as easily as it does in mainstream sports, because obviously, you know, you'll have mainstream sports commentators who do that play-by-play, which is the technical side of things and reading the sponsors and all that, and then doing the specific action, and they can translate to quite a few sports, right? They can move around quite well, but it seems like it's not as easy to do that in esports. Now, I'm not sure if I can name any off the top of my head. I feel like if Battalion does well, I think a Counter-Strike commentator could quite easily transfer over to that, because it has
and it's a very simple game too. Like, it's pretty straightforward, you know, X amount of maps, X amount of weapons, like that's about it. Same concept as well.
And then games like, the thing with games like League of Legends is, if you're going to have somebody that doesn't really know what doesn't totally know what they're talking about, but isn't as deep in the scene as, say, they maybe a full-time person who only does League is. But I feel like if you are going to do that, that person needs to be really, really good at play-by-play. And they need to be able to articulate very well and at least have a general understanding of how that game works. But you also need somebody who can compensate for your lack of knowledge in certain places. And that's when I think you get that hard, pilly style of like color and then a play-by-play where that's all they do is the play-by-play. And then every time it's color, you switch off to that person.
And that's one, like, really, like, I've got a lot of respect for Elfish Guy in that regard. Because he casts so much shit. But with that being said, he also plays a lot, you know. So I know he obviously was, like, a really prevalent World of Tanks caster, I believe it was. But, you know, he plays a lot of Overwatch. He really understands the game. He plays plenty of Battle Royale, so he understands the game. So I guess it's like, you know, when you are super heavily invested, like, full-time into that, and you have the stage confidence, which, like, someone like he does, it's really easy to transfer it over. So when I did the AUNZ champs, I didn't realize until 20 minutes before broadcast that I was hosting. I was with the understanding that I was doing the, because play-by-play usually hosts, as you said. And I was doing the play-by-play, but I thought Tim was hosting, so brainstorm. And management told us, like, oh, no, you're hosting. And I was like, oh, shit. So I guess at the very start, because I wasn't prepared, you could probably tell that I was shitting myself for the first game. And then after I did it, after the first sequence went one full map cycle, then I was like, okay, I know what I need to say. But I reckon it would have been very easy to tell that I was like underprepared for that that aspect of it. So I have a lot of respect for people that can just like change environment immediately and just like fall straight into it. So that's one thing I'm really trying to work on now.
Yeah, I think that the host side of things is an almost unwritten third role when it comes to just commentary, because obviously you have the play-by-play, esports commentary, because you have the play-by-play color commentary, and then that host side of things isn't as connected to play-by-play as it is in mainstream. And I think that's almost sometimes, I don't know, I'm not fully convinced on it, but I almost feel like that would kind of work better with color when it comes to Counter-Strike, because play-by-play, especially in esports, like we've said, is you need to know a decent amount about the game. It's not the same as as a mainstream sport where you need to know, but it's not, you don't need to be a player or anything like that. So
correct.
Like some of the old men that are commentating NBA aren't out there balling every night. That's not. I mean, they might be, but yeah, I don't think it's high level NBA play. Let's say that.
Man, I tell you, like, again, another thing that I can really respect is, say, I guess it's one of those things as well. Like the people in the real sport comment or IRL sport, whatever you want to call it, like mainstream, sport we're going for. Commentating ring, they're all full-time employees effectively. So, say for example, like AFL, where it's games Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they're spending their Monday through Thursday watching every single aspect of footy that they possibly can. And like how you can ring off like 30 names on each team by just their number and, you know, basically what shoes they're wearing and, you know, with whether or not their girlfriend kissed them on the way to like work that day or whatever. It's insane. But that's, again, you know, that's what they're doing 24/7 pretty much. Whereas, you know, for like, say, you know, I guess pretty much everyone in the current esports scene, like there's no full-time Australian commentators, because like even Elfish is more like he works for ESL as well, like as opposed to just commentating. So I have so much respect for the other people, the other casters alongside me who do it in their effectively small amounts of free time to keep up, not only keep up with the scene, but also to, you know, get into it as best as they can. So, yeah.
I think the best example I can think of that, like, kind of crazy knowledge of players is, I would highly doubt you've watched this, but have you ever watched baseball games before?
I have watched a couple, yeah. My housemate's like a mad American sports fan. So.
That is crazy. The things that they say just in fill time of baseball is the most ridiculous things. Like, Annie went to Starbucks this morning, you know, like the craziest thing ever that comes out of them. You're like, what, are you following these people around? What is going on?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, no, it's crazy, hey. American sports are just like a whole nother world, hey. It's unreal.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, segueing out of that mainstream sports talk and going straight into the most recent tournament that we had, which is obviously the ESL AUNZ Champs Season 9. We had 4 teams at this one. It was the Fighting for Freedom, Genuine Gaming, Chiefs, and Order. Now, I think it was... it would have been Fighting for Freedom that would count out as first, in 4th place, then Chiefs in 3rd, Genuine Gaming 2nd, and Order in 1st. Now, I think obviously the big storyline in this one is the fact that Genuine made it all the way to the grand final, and they looked they looked really, really good against Chiefs. And even in that Order matchup, right? Yeah, technically it was a 3-0. But they still had, especially on that nuke map, you can see. Oh, man. You can see where it is, right? You can see what they're working with there, what the dynamic that they have, the consistency that they have, their ability to play just in this almost like hypnotic rhythm of knowing where they are. It's obviously, I don't want to completely compare them to it, but it's a similar style to the old way NIP and Fnatic used to play, in that way that it just seems like they know, they're almost reading each other's minds. So when it comes to that Genuine lineup, what was the biggest takeaway that you thought you saw from their performance?
So I've known all of those guys for a very, very long time. So the roster has only changed in a sense where they added on, obviously, Stat around December, January, and I can't remember if Maker was slightly before that, but it was a very, very similar time. So before that, it was like the old Taboo roster, and I think they had Dirty, and then like for a very small amount of time they had Mini, and they've sort of changed out those like last 2 players only very recently, like a couple of times. It wasn't very consistent in that sense, but before that it's just been Apocdud and Skull and Jinx, like the core 3 for the longest time.
Yeah.
And I think the real big thing for them is, like, obviously Oxy is doing fantastic work for them as a coach. Also, the management for Genuine are really, really good as well. I actually met up with the owner for coffee when he was over here with the Dota team, and just like got an understanding of like where he comes from with Genuine Esports or Genuine Gaming. And it comes from such like the right place. You know, he's in it for the right reasons. He's not in it for the money. He's not in it for the fame. He's just in it because he wants the scene to basically flourish. And I have so much respect for that. But I feel like that translates quite well into the team. And also, it's one of their massive positives and their strong suits, but also it is one of their downfalls as well. So you would have seen in the game where they versed the Chiefs on the first day where they 2-0'd, and it wasn't that close either. It was like, you know, I think both matches were like 16-11, 16-10 or something. And it was just so like high tier from them, and they're all, you know, fist bumping and shouting, and like Apocdud, you watch him or Skull Hunter, them get loud. If they're loud, they're winning, like pretty much straight away. And I've seen that at LAN. I've got to feel that at LAN like multiple times.
LPL,
and
right?
I've also got to LPL and also even CG as well last year. And I went out, I remember getting them so drunk that they had to have attack pause in the semi-finals on the morning of the Sunday, so one of them could go off and vomit. But that's another story. So, just they're all like, the reason they succeed and flourish so well is because they get on so well. So that's where you see, like, I feel like Order, they've got that synergy as well. So do the Chiefs. But like Greyhound, for example, they've got they're the 5-star players, but they're also just so in sync with each other. They all live in the same place. So the management's awesome and like everything like that. So teams that succeed, like, I feel they're in and out of the server, they're best mates pretty much. It doesn't, and that's what I mean with genuine. It's very clear that they have trust in each other. And you can tell when you get, say, for example, you put 5-star players in a team that have never played really with each other before. They'll just bait the hell out of each other. Mm-hmm. Whereas with Genuine, there was like the first few rounds I was watching of Overpass, like watching him take B, it was just like they were never losing the sight. It was like they just knew exactly like what flags were going off, and didn't matter which player was in whatever position, they all like knew each other's smokes if they needed to, and that kind of thing. So it's like, not only reviewing demos and not only aim pracking and shit like that, it's also being with each other on that personal level at the same time. Say for example, like a player like Jinx, he's not always going to be in the fragging situation because he's a support player, but the team knows that he will be able to say, for example, if it's like a situation where it's a 3v5, they're not going to rotate over to help him because they're going to they know it's like Jinx is going to hold the B side. He's fine. We trust that. And then they can stack more heavily over towards A where the weak points are, for example. So that's the one thing I really love about them. And also teams that succeed in Australia, you usually see that in them as well. And I think that's one thing, like for me, I've really been struggling to keep up with Order and why they might have been inconsistent or why they always get to that right before they win to go qualify for another event and then they fall away to a Chiefs or Greyhound, like almost every time. And it's been really disheartening to watch, but I sort of feel like maybe they weren't on the same like wavelength or not as hypey as each other or not on that sort of same emotional connection. But then I saw them at the LAN this weekend and I was like, hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am wrong. And they all looked to be, there was not, aside from Nuke, there was not a single point Order was losing that series. Even on Nuke, like, it was like, they're probably going to close this out.
Yeah. So speaking then about Order and segueing into them, excuse me, their lineup, like you said, has been going through a kind of shaky period where it seems like they get right to the edge and then fall at the last hurdle almost. And I don't know, I've been looking at it in a way of, if they didn't win this LAN, I felt like there needs to be a change. There needs to be some sort of change, right? Because you can't, especially when it's supposed to be the second best team, that's what they're aiming for right now. They're competing with Chiefs for that second spot, right? So
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to that, it's like you can't be falling at every single hurdle, and especially when it comes to all the big opportunities of making those actual LAN tournaments and winning the prize money or whatever. So a part of me is like, okay, they've got it now, or I hope they've got it now. They've figured out whatever it was that they needed to deal with, but also have to keep in mind that it's a LAN tournament, right? And we know that they're an emotional team, and maybe that emotion can come to better use when they're at a LAN because they can all sort of tune themselves to each other, right? And they're not, locked away or whatever. Or, it's a different setting.
Well, they're all very like split up as well in that sense. None of them really that close by, I guess. So it does make it very, very tricky, especially competing against Greyhound, who I'm sure that like if you were in their team speak, you could hear them all over each other's mics. Yeah, because they literally sit 2 meters away from each other, or 1 meter. Yeah, so it's a whole different world there. Yeah.
So the LAN result one is a good thing, right? Which is strange. It's strange when I think about it because winning a LAN is big, right? And that's always what you want to count on when it comes to tournaments, and generally what I give the most weight when it comes to ranking who's in what position. But it also kind of adds this weird caveat to the win where it's like, okay, but when we go back into online, are we going to just have the same issues? Is the problem solved? So it's almost similar to how when Na'Vi keeps winning games, or when Na'Vi will win a tournament every now and then because Simple goes and gets like 80 frags in a one map, and it's like suddenly they're all like, oh well, it's clearly working then. We're all good. We're fine. We don't need to make any changes. When in reality, you win one and lose 5. Something. Yeah, so it's like.
Well, one really interesting thing I got to see, like. I was like a little kid in a candy store the other night because I got to cast. I obviously after doing a few EU MDL games over the last couple of weeks. Finally, after the tournaments had all wrapped up, I think Vitality had so many games to play, so they sort of like funneled them down in this very short period of time. And I think it was another couple of teams in a similar boat. So I was like, shit, I get to cast Vitality. Like I'm so excited. Like ZywOo has been, obviously the player to watch basically right now. They got 16-3'd by Sprout. I was like, and it was on Mirage as well. So it wasn't like anything really niche. They weren't doing anything crazy. I'm just like, am I watching fucking Vitality right now or completely different team? It was like crazy. And then this is a team that's just come off the back of one EPL or whatever it was, or ECS, only a short time ago. And Summit, of course, and like ZywOo dropping bloody 1.4 ratings every game and shit like that. Like it's insane. And then that happens online. It's like, what happened? And their coach was in the server too, so it wasn't like, they were missing their coach, or I don't know. I just literally couldn't put my finger on it. And maybe you're right in that sense. It's like when they're all connected on a personal level. But then that's what I meant. Like ZywOo, for example, everyone was so convinced he was a cheater when he was playing in FPL. And then he comes to LAN and starts showing that he's not. Obviously, he's just a god. But it's like he's playing an online game and he's getting shit on. I'm going like, what? Yeah. So maybe that is a similar sort of thing, I guess. When you're not with your team, it makes a big difference, and that's where we fall away. Because I guess around the world, so like I know that most European teams they'll all live like relatively close by in their own homes, but then they'll go to like an office where they play each day, as far as I'm aware, and it's very structured. But they're with each other, they're playing. In each other's presence and stuff. So yeah, that would probably have a huge thing. But with Order, it's been very, very interesting because like you look at each player individually, right? And you can't really falter many of them. Zeph's not in a really position where you're going to go, oh, if we remove him, it'll fix it, because he's usually like entry flagger or like anchor. He's in not a very high tier, going to get heaps of frags role. And then you've got like Alistair, who's just he was really quiet for like a 3-month period, and now he's been back just like popping off every game. Imagine is one of the smartest players you'll ever come across, and he frags. And then there's Hats, who, as the people were saying on the weekend, he's like finally fixed up his posture now. He used to sit like 2 centimeters away from his screen. Now he's like sitting up again. So like you look at each, and Inns as well. Inns is a fantastic player. You look at everyone on paper and whether it be their statistics or their attitude in game or whatever, I can't see where you could fix it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But with that being said, you look at Avant, right? Obviously they haven't had much to show off yet, but they almost beat Greyhound in a best of 3 series off in their first ever facing them. And then they beat Order twice in 2 best of 3 series.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe a shake-up of a like maybe it's 2 players, or maybe it's a disband or something. Because again, you're looking, remember the old Tainted Minds roster, you had 5 of the best players in the region on the same team, and they sucked.
Yeah.
Which is like, what? But I guess that's how it is. So it's Order's situation is so tricky, because I just don't know how to fix it. But with that being said, it's like, is it broken? I don't know. I think they're still an amazing team, so it makes it really tricky.
Yeah, I had the same issue when I was thinking about it as well. When you look at that lineup and you go, okay, if we're going to make a change, where do we make it? And you look at every one of the players on that lineup and you go, well, is there an improvement? Do you know what I mean? Like, Are they doing something wrong? Not really. They're all filling the role. But for whatever reason, it seems like at least And it's crazy because it's not like they're a bad team. They're still the second best in Australia. And if there's no pressure behind the match, it's almost like, yeah, they could definitely contend with Greyhound and they'd probably beat anyone else. But as soon as it becomes that pressure behind it and there's something that they need to achieve and that final hurdle, they always seem to trip at it. So it's like, I don't know what the move is, whether or not it's like almost moving just players about and maybe going, all right, maybe it's time to separate things out and have players like, because could you imagine EMAG in any one of these, like, you know, up and coming top 10 rosters? Do you know what I mean? Like the amount of experience that he has would be crazy. Like, put him on any lineup, they're going to learn a hell of a lot. Like, it's
so correct. And now it is sort of that, like, as with Avant, for example, you know, you've got APOC, who is one of the biggest brains in our region by far. He's played overseas for a very long time. He's been at a number of national events and international events. And now he's basically got, you know, 4 young fraggers with him, pretty much. Obviously, Soju's a bit more of a supporty sort of player, but then you got, you know, Sterling, who's so good on the AWP, and then Jara and Hazza, who are just, like, really, really good at, you know, good with the rifle. And it's just, like, damn, what they did in such a short space of time. And I am a little bit reserved in a sense that they basically have spent like a whole month preparing for only the Star Ladder qualifiers. Yeah. So it's like, it's going to be interesting to see how they translate that into whatever season they're playing shortly, or whatever tournament it may be. But yeah, like, as you say, a shake-up, a complete dismantling, and that's what happened to Tainted Minds. The team that, like, was the most expensive and should have been the best on paper was garbage. They were getting rolled. But then it's like, again, similar sort of thing. You know, you put the pressure on, for example, with Order in the MDL finals recently. The first map was 16-4 that they took out. I think it was Train and it was Chiefs map pick. So they've already just like absolutely ruined Chiefs. And it's like, all right, these guys are winning 2-0. No way. And then they lose 2-1. So it's like 1-2. Yeah. Like, what? You know, like, what?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It almost it seems like it's a kind of situation where you know, what can rise from the ashes of Order is what I think of, right? You know, like a phoenix. You got to let it go, and then what do we get from the leftovers of that? And does you know, what does that do for the rest of the teams? So a little bit of me is like, maybe that would be for the best, but I also am, you know, you've got to understand that Order is, you know, an organization that needs a team, and also they have got this result now, so it's going to be a while now. Like, regardless of what happens, this is a LAN result now, so we've got another 3-6 months of this lineup being together, just living off the back of that. Now, whether or not
I hope they do well as well. Like, I really do.
Sure.
You know, they're such a great team, and I really hope that they do continue on, because it was like a huge gamble, obviously taking on Zeph as a younger player that didn't have that Div 1 experience, but he's like settled in really well. So it's really cool to see how far they've come.
So now talking about the another sort of storyline, which I feel like, I don't know why, and I'm talking about Chiefs here, in the fact that they lost 2-0 to the Genuine lineup, and then they lost 2-0 to Order, right? Yeah. And I feel like in a normal world I should be concerned, but for whatever reason I'm just not. I don't know why. I don't know. I couldn't tell you why I'm not concerned about that loss, but it just felt like it wasn't their day, and it was almost fated. Like, it was just not going to happen that day, and maybe there was something going on, something behind the scenes that is not, you know, disclosed or whatever. But I just felt like something wasn't there, and I don't think it's the end of the world. So, did you have any sort of worry about that lineup going that way?
Nah, no way. Like, off the back of that lineup, you know, they took a big gamble, obviously, on picking up Blitz, but Blitz is a player that sort of sat at like just below the top 4 for the longest period of time. You know, I've known him for a fair while now, and like I've seen him obviously going all the way back to Funky Monkeys, and then he was on Legacy, and then now he's finally moved and taken that step forward into the Chiefs. And obviously he moved into IGL there, which is like, you know, you don't just go from being on like a Div 2 team to IGLing a team that's got the capacity to be one of the best teams in our region. But then, you bring on your Offnu and your AUSSIE. I was concerned at that point in time because they had Moe and Infrequent, obviously Moe on the IGL, and then Infrequent on the AWP, and Infrequent is one of the best AWPers that we've ever seen. And it's like maybe his attitude wasn't correct for the team or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, and especially because his synergy with Texter was so good. So that team was always awesome. But then they murdered it and kept Texter and Tux and then brought on the new roster that we see today. So that's but with you, at first I was kind of I don't really know about this. And then not only have us had the opportunity to see them put results on the table, I've also had a chance to talk to them about that roster as well. And I remember, and I feel like this is somewhat true. Maybe it was a little bit reserved, but in a capacity, it's definitely somewhat true. But speaking of Tux at IEM, just at a party before one of the days, whatever it was, talking to him about it, and he was like, we're only at 30% of capacity because they are still a relatively new team. They've only been brought together as soon as Tainted Minds has obviously sold out to Team Icon, and then Icon dropped the roster. So it's it's just shit. Okay, so we've got more to see then, and you've got Ferg, who's one of the biggest minds in Australian CS across the board at the helm, and then players that are so good. You've got Tux and Texter that are just so sharp. Offnu and AUSSIE, who seem to be just super consistent, and then Blitz is clearly doing work as well. He knows what he's doing. So I think you could be right. Losing 0-4 on one day, and especially against a Genuine who are playing out of their skins, and also an Order who clearly had their shit together. In one day, kind of whatever. Shit happens. I guess it's a bit unlucky. So I'm in the same mind as you. I'm not concerned about that roster at all. I know that they're going to keep on grinding, and obviously after just qualifying for the global challenge, with MDL, that they'll continue to do good. But the funniest thing was, or the saddest thing, I guess you could say, is now Tux's 8 regional LAN win streak has now been ended.
Yeah. Sad
times for the Tyler boy.
Yeah, it is crazy when you put it into that context. That is going to be, that'll be the end of the LAN streak. And it does, I don't know. Like I said, so I'm not totally concerned about it. But it does, it always goes back to that initial change when it happened, and you being just oh please, I just really wanted to see where it went. I wanted to have that lineup play against Greyhounds in they beat them in the end, and I wanted to see it at Sydney or something of that caliber, and it just felt like it was just taken away. And but then again, you know what? You can't complain, all right? They have their lineup. The changes happen now, so they're going to live with whatever the changes are. I don't think this is the end of the world for them. I think that like you said, they have the MDL Global Challenge coming up, so they can do some work there. And I'm not as worried about them as I am about Order. So I think that's, it is what it is. And it's a sad day for Tux, but at the end of the day, sometimes this shit happens. Sometimes you just have a bad day.
You can't win everything, and that's the thing. It's just kind of funny in the end, no matter where Chiefs have been on the leaderboard, it's just Tux was still winning those lands because he was still doing it. So that's always cool. But kind of funny and sad at the same time that has been ended. But nonetheless, I think they are very comfortable in that, and you've got to remember as well, the whole Tux and Texter VAC ban issue is the fact that I think they're quite accepting of their situation now, and Blitz, Offnu and AUSSIE are also, I'm assuming, quite accepting of the situation too. So obviously they only miss out on Valve Majors, which is not a huge percentage now. I think obviously they miss out on Starladder, which is horrible, but that allows another opportunity for a different team to show up and represent our region. So it's not one team. Greyhound is still the team that is just that little bit further ahead. Now that Sicko is working for them, and now that they've got the Coach Neil as well, they're insane. Honestly, I can't see them being taken down from that number one spot anytime soon. But I don't know. It's kind of nice to not see your usual Order and Greyhound going to do everything. Because that was it, really. It was, wasn't it? It's like all the international events, it was Greyhound and Order in the final, and then whoever lost, stayed home, and whoever won went over. And that was it. And it's great because you see, you still get the opportunity to see those players that you love and respect and support play at that international level. But yeah, Greyhound have beat Renegades on LAN and stuff so they're just that one step further. But with that being said as well, like I kind of hope, I really do want either some new old names to come back in or new names like get brought up with everyone else. Like I'm really interested in some of these younger rosters as well. Like if they have, again, as you said, like maybe it's an EMAG or something that, takes a risk and takes a step down and brings a whole bunch of new players in, like a Moe is obviously doing with your Zemps and your Voids. There's all these young, really insane players that have either they're not experienced enough or they've got dog shit attitudes that if they had a little tune and got brought into that higher level, you don't not everyone needs to be a fragger. It's just kind of ironic that our 4 best teams, all the IGLs are nuts, but it's they don't have to be. If you've got the fragging power of 4 really, really good players, you don't need 5 super sharp, crazy players. You just need a brain and a leader, someone that someone respects. And I have so much respect for people who IGL because at one of our LANs and also one of our remember the WA online seasons and shit. Yeah, and also a very, very short reign in CG. I was the IGL, and it was horrendous. If someone thinks they're better than their IGL, they would just go do whatever. So I had a couple players that just would not listen to me at all, and they just fuck off. It's I'm not here to be sharp. I'm here to make sure you're not dumb and go and click heads in a good location. It's that's all I'm here for. If I'm not doing that, what the point is? What's the point of me playing? So it'll be interesting to see where it all goes. But again, as you say, I think the top 5 are now Ground Zero. I think have the potential to push in, but for now, I think it's pretty set with Genuine as the 5th, and I think that'll sit for a short period of time with Avant, obviously that top 5, and then the bottom of I'm more interested, I guess, in the 6 to 10 spot at the moment. That'll be where I'll be placing most of my eyes, obviously, in the next sort of few months.
So, speaking of obviously the top 4, there is one more team that I wanted to talk to you about, and that is obviously the Avant lineup. Yep. Now, they made it into they made it through the minor qualifier. They're looking really good right now. They have APOC there to sort of give them that experience. They've got Hazard, Gyra, Sterling, and am I missing one?
Soju. Yep.
Soju, yeah. So it looks really good. Like Moe said in his interview, they seem to be all on the same wavelength. So do you have any sort of takeaway with that team?
I knew they were going to be good immediately. I felt bad because the Avant, well, I'm sure you know, but the Avant team, if you look on HLTV and look how many players have been signed to Avant in the last 4 years, I guess they've been around a very, very long time, but they're also the organization that has sort of been known for not them personally messing with the roster, but there's been occasionally times where players have been able to make decisions. There's been emotional unrest and all those kind of things within teams, and it's been such a shit show. So it's I felt bad initially when the change happened because it did basically cull out a few people that was basically the people that got sort of palmed off over the course of 2 months, really, or 2-3 months. 4 players pretty much got palmed off effectively, which was obviously, you had Panic removed, who had that really, I think it was around the time where he had really shit internet for 6 weeks. He was playing on 4G, so that's really rough. And then you obviously had Mizu, who certainly wasn't performing as great as he could have been. But then Raz was brought on for only such a short period of time. Elusive was on that roster for ages. So it was basically a roster that Panic brought on as a risk, as a gamble. And that was the Juices, Elusive, Badger, all those guys at the start for Gfinity, and Panic moved over east for it. And then basically now that roster is I don't even think there's a single player that was the same. And that's within less than a year. And there's been 8 changes to that roster.
Yeah.
But then when I was told, like, because I got the info well and truly before it happened, when I found out about that team, I was like, that team's going to do good. Like, immediately, I was just like, yep, that team's going to do good. The only risk that I have or see lies with APOC, in the sense that it's not a personal thing. It's more the fact that I haven't seen him on a very like long-term successful roster. And I know, like, he's always put up results. He's always had really insane performances, but he's never been on like a long-standing sort of team that's done well, in a sense. So in that vibe, I was kind of a bit concerned, like, how would it last? But with 4 players that are as close as Jaira, Sterling, Hazard, and Soju are, they're friendly, again, just like Genuine are, friendly both in and outside of the server. They're all amazing guys as well. Like, I've had a chance to get to... APOC is probably the one who I haven't really had a chance to spend time with compared to the rest. Obviously, with Sterling and Soju being on Legacy, I got to spend a lot of time with them, quite personally as well, like very, very close. Like, I managed the team when they were at MEO a couple of years back. Or no, last year. Holy shit. Long time, but yeah, last year. So I've had a chance to really understand them, and I don't know if you've ever queued into like Sterling and Hazard at 3 a.m. on Face It, man. They're just having fun, and they're still insane. So that team, I feel they've got 4 players who are really good and get along really well, and then obviously APOC is there as like I remember seeing the Master Splinter and the 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles meme. Like, that's basically Avant right now, and it seems to be doing really well. So I knew that they were going to be good straight off the bat. But with that being said, I can't... Technically, you could almost, after Starlighter, you could almost ease them above that 4th spot to argue with that 3rd, 2nd spot with Order and the Chiefs. But it would be way too soon. You've got to make sure that, A, the roster actually stays together, B, how they do overseas, and also C, how they perform in future tournaments. But yeah, it's very easy to say when you focus like a whole month on training for just one event, as opposed to what they're going to be like when they're playing regular officials and things like that.
Sweet. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on. I've really appreciated it. We've gone to, I think, an hour and 10 minutes, maybe even a bit more than that. So we've definitely hit the mark. And
Yep.
Honestly, it probably feels like we could talk for a very long time. But I do have to cut it off at an hour, otherwise nobody's going to watch it, because let's face it, it can't go on for all eternity, even though I imagine it could. So thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure. Obviously, I'd love to have you on at any time. I'm sure we'll do another one at some point.
Yep.
Have you got anything that you need to plug on that's coming up?
Not really. Hey, it's just like I'm just going to be casting as much as I can. I guess we've rejigged Instafrag, so FPL is back and like clean. I guess there was a few issues that we're having with it, but it's we've sort of, myself and Panic have brought it back to a good stead. So obviously, if anyone wants to get involved in that and continue playing the pugs again, it's really, really good. So that's the only plug that I guess I could say. But aside from that, from me, I just want to thank everyone, and obviously yourself. Thank you so much for having me on tonight. It was really, really great. And thank everyone who's continued to support me through my journeys, which have been pretty wild these last 2 years. And, I have so much love and affection and passion for this scene. Obviously I get to take an amazing thing out by myself being able to get to go to these events and things like that. But at the end of the day, my main goal is to help the scene grow, whether or not it's alongside me or above me. I just want our scene to flourish and continue to do as good as it is. So, that's pretty much all from me, man. Again, thank you for having me. But, thank you to everyone, obviously, who watches. The show is great. I've watched a fair few of them so far, man. So keep it up as well. We need more like this.
Sweet. So, words of encouragement then to finish it off. Thank you guys all for tuning in to this episode. And the next one, maybe at the end of this week, we'll see. Scheduling is always an issue with these things, but it'll happen when it happens. So that has been it for this one, folks, and we'll catch you next time. Peace out.